Hello everyone and welcome back to Chess Programming Game Design with me. So in the last lesson, we finished all of the special moves, and today I said that we're either going to be working on other events such as check, checkmate and so on, or the undo button. I didn't get any votes, so I decided, well, why don't we do the undo button before we get into the other stuff, because this is going to help us sometimes troubleshoot some stuff, as we're going to be able to just undo a move, which can be very helpful. So as you can see in front of me, what I have open is a new class which I just created. I've called it Movement. We don't need this to inherit from anything, so let's just delete that. We also don't need these because, well, it's going to be a different kind of a class. Similarly to our special or normal move, or however we call that class, it's an independent class. It doesn't inherit from anything. However, we are going to be using the normal or special move class to help us to deal with this. So why do we need this class? We don't really need it. However, I think that this is the easiest way to deal with undo move. So the way that I'm going to be undoing a move is by remembering which piece was where on which turn, and where it was moved to, and whether it took a piece there as well, and whether that move was special or not. So on turn number, you probably know what that means. Moved from, piece moved, so the piece that we've selected. Moved from is where it's moved from. Ignore the comment, we don't need that. Neither do we need that. Then we have piece, captured piece if there was one. Otherwise, as you can see, by default it's null. And this is our constructor. So each time we call we instantiate a movement class, we have to pass all of these. So we are going to be using this in our undo button. Now, the way we've been dealing with our program so far is by remembering last piece moved. Well, now instead of doing that, we're going to have a whole list of the moves that have been made, which is just going to be a list of movement. So how we do that is the following. Let me just find it in my other program just to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. I call that list all moves, and now we can just comment this out for the time being. So as you can see, I've created a new list, all moves. This records everything that is inside of here. If this was Python, we wouldn't need to have this class, but because it's C#, it doesn't allow us to have a list of different elements. So if it was Python, what we would have is 5 lists, all of which, well, we would have one list, which is going to be 2-dimensional, and sublists inside of it, which would contain an integer, a square, a piece, a normal or special move, and another piece. But in C# you can only have one type of element inside of a list, and so you have to do it with a class. So now that we have created this new list, we, as you can see, have a few errors. We don't have a last piece moved. So how do we deal with that? Quite simple. Instead of doing this, we just add a new element, which we are going to do the following way. Let's just find our list. So all moves dot add, and then we have a whole procedure to go through. So let me just find it to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And this is just allow after we've done the normal moves. Yep, okay. So over here, I do have some stuff commented out, so we can just delete that. So what we do is all moves.add. So to all moves we add a new movement. So turn number is the first argument we give it. Turn number, as you might remember, just increases depending on which turn it is after a turn has been made. Then we have current piece selection, so we just pass it the current piece that we plan on moving, or well, dot square of piece, so we pass it the square. Then we pass it current piece selection. Then we create a new class. We have to do this because otherwise it doesn't work the way we want it to. So we create a new normal or special move, current square selection. And this isn't going to be a special move because it's just over here. And then we also have current square selection dot piece in square is the next argument that we pass. So that's one of the errors sorted. However, we have other errors as well now. So similarly to this, we do the same. However, in these, I should probably delete that. In these, the normal or special move is actually supposed to be special. Well, not for en passant. For en passant, we are treating it as special. Okay, so it doesn't exactly matter. I believe that this is en passant. It's on row 5. So yep. That is fine. So we can't treat it as special move, so let's put it as true. Then this is the pawn promotion. And we also treat this as a special move. So instead of having last piece moved, we erase that, remove it, and we put a true here, comma, true. Moving on. What else do we have? Okay, we will deal with that later on. Again, over here, same thing. Don't forget the true. And in 2 more places. There we go. And over here. So, in the other places that we have an error, let me just find it over here, for example. We want to know which piece has been moved last. So we can easily do that by just looking up all moves. The index is going to be -1, all moves.count -1. This just gives us the very last element that's in there. And then we need to access the following: dot move to dot the valid move. So what this does is gives us the very last element that has been added to the all moves list. Then it gives us the square that the piece has been moved to, and then the valid move, if you remember, in our normal or special move is just the actual square. So move to is a normal or special move class, and the valid move is a square class. Similarly, later on, well, we can just remove the debug, seeing as it's a debug, it doesn't exactly matter. Where did I just put this? It's over here. You can just copy and paste it. And those are all of those errors gone. Now, let's actually get to the adding of our undo button. So, well, we already have added our undo button, but let's add our method. So, our method, let me just find it over here. I will copy and paste it and then explain it as I normally do, because otherwise it's going to take a bit too long. Again, ignore the comments. Ignore this for the time being, it comes later on as well. So let's go through the whole method. Movement equals, well, movement last move equals all moves, and then, so what, we just get the last move that has been made. This helps us so that we don't have to reference all moves every time we want to reference the last move that has been made, because this is the only move undo moves is dealing with. So okay, so this is one way of doing it. The other way of doing undoing a move is of remembering, like in proper chess, all you remember is which piece has been moved to where. If you do that, then it still works. However, in my opinion, if we were going to put that in a program, what we would need to do is each time we would want to undo a move, we would have to restart the game and then redo it up to that point. Because I don't see any other way of redoing it. There might be a more efficient. There is definitely a more efficient way of undoing a move, but this was the easiest for me. So that's this is all that does. We just get the last move as last move suggests. So we get a movement class. That movement class contains a move2 that is special. So if the movement that we are looking at is special, then we want to deal with it slightly differently. Firstly, if it's a king that has been moved, that means that the king has been castled. And so we want to undo the king's movement as well as the rook's movement. So what we do is last move.move2.the valid move.end column equals 2, if that's true. Then what we do is move piece. We move our piece. So this is going to get slightly more complicated as I go through it. So this dot all squares. So we just go through all of the squares on the board, and all this does is basically just selects the rook that has been moved. So if it's column 2, that means that the castling has happened with the left rook. If it's the other column, which is going to be column 5, I believe in our case, else, then it's going to be the rook on the right. And that's why we have this. And then it moves to its starting square, i.e. the corner. Then what we also do is decrease the number of moves made the piece has made by 2, and we do it by 2 because if you remember, move piece 2 increases the number of moves a piece has made, and also when we're undoing a piece, we want to, when we're undoing a move, we want to decrease the number that it has started with. So we increase it once, and then we want to decrease it once, but then once again for the one increase we had. This does the same thing just for the other rook. So that's for the king. Then we also have if it's for the white pawn or the black pawn. I will just explain the white pawn because they work the same. So if it's a special move for the white pawn, that means that it's most likely en passant. So we have, I've created a temporary game object inside of here, as you can see. Last move dot moved to, so the square that's been moved to. Dot piece in square, so the square, the piece that it contains. And then we look at the game object, i.e. whatever we can actually see in Unity. Because if you don't do this, then piece in square is just the object. However, game object gives you everything that you normally see on the right side. So it gives you, what have I selected? It gives you this basically. So we call that temp object. Then we also make an integer, temp moves made. So the number of moves made, this is just to help us to remember how many moves this piece has made. And then we destroy immediate the piece in square. Oh, actually this is for the pawn promotion. So what we do is just destroy the script that tells the pawn that it's a queen if it's been promoted, or a knight or whatever. Then we set the piece in square to null of this square, and then we re-add the pawn. So what this does is, if you know, so let me just explain it more visually. So if this white pawn reaches this side, it gets promoted. It gets promoted by getting its pawn script destroyed and adding a new script such as a queen script. What undo button does is it destroys this queen script and adds the what's called the pawn script back in, so that it's a pawn once again and the move has been undone the way it's supposed to be. Then so that's what add component does. Later on what we do is change the texture. So for changing the texture, I found out that you can have a resources folder. It has to be called resources, and inside of it you can have different images, and these are going to be the textures. Depending on the name, you just rename it. As you can see, pawns, white pawn. It's the same thing for the black pawn. So this only happens if it's a special move. What about if it's not a special move? Or later on, what happens if it's not a special move? Well, we have, let's delete this because we don't need it. Last move dot move to. So we basically just undo what a normal move would have done. So last move dot move to dot the valid move. So this just selects the square to which the piece has moved, and then the piece that is in the square. The transform gives us the location in the game of that object. Oops, I did not mean to do that. And we set its parent to be whatever it moved from. So last move dot moved from dot game object dot transform, and we keep this false. Then last move dot move to moved from dot piece in square equals last move dot move to blah blah blah. So these few lines just undo the normal. If we go to here, oh no, move piece 2. Let's go into move piece 2. So those lines just undo this. That's all that those lines do. But you can read it. I don't think that I have to go through it. I'm not going to be able to explain it as much anyway. I mean, I can explain it, but it's probably better if you explain it yourselves because it's the same. Then what we do is last move dot captured piece equals null. So if no piece has been captured, then we know that we don't have to worry about the piece that has been, that there is no piece that has been captured. So last move dot captured piece dot transform, or no, if it doesn't equal null, meaning that if a piece has been captured, what we do is reset the position of the piece. So that's what this does. So first of all we make it enabled, then we set sorting order to 1 so that it comes to the foreground, and then we also tell it to move to where it's supposed to be, or we tell the square what its piece in square is. So then we do all moves dot remove at and that. So this just removes the very last move of all moves because we've undone that move, so we can't undo it once again and it doesn't exist. Minus minus turn number just decreases the turn number by 1. That's the turn number, so this. Then we have allow square selection equals false, blah blah blah. So this just is basically the end of turn stuff, but in an undo manner. So black's turn, white's turn, and so on. Undo button .set active, that's giving us an error because we haven't actually set it to. It's not anything yet. We do this so that if something has been selected and the undo button has been clicked, then it sets the color of everything to what it's supposed to be, to default. So let's do a work with undo button now. Let's actually assign it and we will end it there. So what we do is at the start of our program we add another variable called undo button, and that's fine. Now we can minimize this. We can find our undo button here. So in main canvas we need to, where was it? It should be here. I can't find it now. This is annoying. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so it's not allowing us to see it in here because we have an error. So inside of our black pawn and white pawn we are still using last piece moved. So instead of that, what we do is it's quite a long winded path, but all moves. Then we do the all moves dot count -1. So that's the index. This needs to be the canvas dot all moves dot count. Why can't it be what? Oh, it's not a method. Okay, or is it? Let me just figure this out very quickly, hopefully. So it is supposed to be the following. It's supposed to be this. Just really quickly, if it's going to allow me to do it. This is the long line, isn't it? Ah, here we go. There we go. So the canvas dot all moves, then the dot count -1 because we want the last element. If you don't do -1, then you're going to get an error because it's going to be an index out of bounds. And then dot piece moved, so the piece that has been moved, just like we did previously. So that's the black pawn sorted. Now let's sort the white pawn. It's going to be about here. There we go. So now inside of our interface, we should hopefully, there we go, see the undo button show up. Go into scene, we select our undo button. There it is. And because we select it that way, then we don't need to assign it inside of our code. And that means that it's been instantiated. There we go. Inside of, now when we make a move, we also want to enable it. So once we do check move selection, we want to make sure, or in end of turn stuff, it's just over here, we want to enable our undo move button because, well, we've made a move and we want to be able to undo it. So where do we put that? We just put it right after the for each loop, and it's set to active. Now we haven't actually linked our button to our code, so let's just do that. Undo button, on click, list is empty, plus here we go. Let's go into scene. Let's find our main canvas. I think that, is this going to be it? And we want to select our undo button, game object. So you add an element, you type in, so this is into scene, you do main canvas, you find the main canvas, then in function, game manager, undo move. There we go. So now let's see. The first thing we need to check is whether it appears after we make a move. And it did. That's good. So you can see, because it's a button, when we hover over it, it changes color. Now, as you can see, we also undid a move. And because we undid a move, it disappears. And that's all inside of the undo move button. And if we get the queen, for example, oh, okay, I've done something with my panels again. Ignore that. So this, I believe that these are going to be pawns. Well, I've never actually set them to be anything. In resources, we do have the white pawn and the black pawn. But yeah, that's an easy fix. We just need to change the folder that they're in. Where did the black pawn go? I've lost it. So it undoes the moves, basically. I know that, as you probably just noticed, it doesn't do it perfectly. I will work on that, but yeah, until next time, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please give me a like, share and subscribe. I know this is quite a longer video. We still have a bit to go with undo move, I think, or maybe not, I'm not too sure. I will tell you in the next lesson. But until then, thank you so much for watching once again, and goodbye.